Welcome to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. This is a podcast dedicated to educating and empowering women from preconception, pregnancy, birth, and through early motherhood on wellness lifestyle. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and I'm a maternity pediatric chiropractor and mother who has hand-selected experts in natural holistic healthcare specialties to shine light on options and choices during this exciting phase of a woman's life. Today, I have the honor to interview my colleague, Dr. Elliot Berlin, and we speak about the topic of alternative birthing. Dr. Elliot Berlin is an award-winning prenatal chiropractor, childbirth educator, labor support bodyworker, and co-founder of Berlin Wellness Group in Los Angeles, California. Dr. Berlin graduated Summa Cum Laude from Life University of Chiropractic in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Atlanta School of Massage. His separate schooling in massage therapy, bodywork, and chiropractic form the backbone of his innovative pre- and postnatal wellness care techniques. Unique Chirossage sessions soothe and relax tight, painful muscles and restore motion to restricted joints. These 30 to 45-minute treatments effectively address most pregnancy aches and pains in just a few visits and promote healthy, comfortable, and functional pregnancy and an ideal environment for labor and delivery. Dr. Berlin's Informed Pregnancy Project aims to utilize multiple forms of media, including podcasts, YouTube series, documentaries, and online workshops, to compile and deliver unbiased information about pregnancy and childbirth to empower new and expectant parents to make informed choices regarding their pregnancy and parenting journey. Dr. Berlin lives in LA with his wife, perinatal psychologist, Dr. Alyssa Berlin, and their 4 fantastic kids. Hi, Dr. Berlin. Welcome to the show. Very excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Brayton. What an honor.
Oh, so this is fun. It's always fun to talk to a fellow chiropractor who shares a passion for empowering women during pregnancy and helping them create an empowered birth experience. So I love that you have a very unique perspective around supporting women during the perinatal phase of their life. So talk to me a little bit about like where you kind of came up with this passion and specialty and what you've done with it.
I think usually the answer that most people will give is when I was pregnant for the first time, I really started to explore the waters and I couldn't find what I was looking for, but that is not my story.
Right.
It's a little different, but it's not so dissimilar. I very early on combined when I switched from medicine to alternative healthcare, because I used to work in emergency rooms and ambulances as an emergency medical technician, and I was on my way to medical school, and then I switched gears, and I wasn't sure. I knew I didn't want to be the drugs and surgery provider, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, only that I wanted to do healthcare. So I took some time, worked in a pizza store, and at nighttime, I explored different options in the complementary healthcare field, and I fell in love with the combination of chiropractic and massage together, addressing the musculoskeletal system from both the muscular and skeletal sides. And I went to school for both. And at the same time, my wife was in school studying psychology. She's a doctorate in psychology. And towards the end of grad school, we're like, oh, this is a good time to have a kid. So we tried and nothing happened. And we ended up on this 3-year medical fertility roller coaster that ended with them saying, good luck. We're out of options for you.
Wow.
Find another way to become parents. So at that point, we were still pretty young. We were pretty broke and pretty broken. Our relationship was on the rocks. Our personal, mental, physical, and spiritual health was on the rocks. And becoming a parent was no longer the most important thing to either one of us. And so we really just said, we'll get there somehow, some way. Let's take time and fix us. And we were living in Lincoln, Nebraska, and there are these beautiful bike trails that go on for hundreds of miles. And they're great for bonding and getting exercise. And we started to do some meditation and Chinese medicine. And it wasn't with an eye on how do we get pregnant? It was with an eye on how do we get whole? And after what took about 9 months, ironically, we were in a much better place. We had worked without giving all the money to fertility treatments. We had improved our relationship. We were both in better physical shape. And we moved to Los Angeles for her postdoc fellowship. And once we had made that move, we started thinking again, hey, maybe now's a good time to consider adoption or some of the other options that are out there. And then we found out we were pregnant. And every 2 years, another baby popped out. We couldn't turn it off.
You have 4 kids, correct?
We have 4 kids, yeah.
God
4
bless.
kids and 2 dogs. So it's a busy house.
That is busy. And how old are your kids now?
They're older. They're 12, 14, 16, and 18.
Got it.
I got 2 that drive, which makes a lot of people nervous, but not me. My doctor said I could
Well,
make it work.
they're chauffeurs, correct?
You would think. They're sometimes chauffeurs, not quite as dependable as Uber or Lyft, but they're there.
Right.
And they're great. My kids are great. One of them already moved out of the house. He's over on your side of the woods in Passaic, New Jersey.
Oh.
Not too far from you. And now every 2 years, someone else will pop out and next stage is beginning. But when my wife and I opened our mind-body practice together, we were very focused on general health, just like the transformation that we had for ourselves at that time. But we also had a special eye on fertility. How can you boost the natural fertility that you have? Obviously, we tried very powerful therapeutic pharmaceuticals and procedures, and nothing helped overcome the body's desire to not get pregnant when it wasn't the right time. And then when it was the right time, poof, it was like a surprise we weren't even expecting. So
wow. And it sounded like it was effortless at that point.
Yeah. We really were not even trying. And then once that first baby came, it was never an issue again. So it was working to try to help with natural fertility boosting through both the mind and body channels. And once people started to get pregnant on that program, was our portal of entry into the world of pregnancy. And again, I come from a medical background. Everything I wanted to do in life was drugs and surgery. And to get involved in pregnancy and find out people give birth outside the hospital was like, what? Why? Don't you have a car? So, it was all brand new to me. And I had a lot of learning to do. And on my path of learning, I also was able to compile information that was helpful to other people. And so, that sort of opened the door for the other passion of mine, which is informed pregnancy and empowered pregnancy through having information, making choices, and being supported in the choices that you make.
Yeah, totally. And I think what's exciting is there's a lot of choices out there for women. But I certainly see, at least in my practice, that you do have to really be your own advocate, and you have to do a lot of research. You have to really kind of treat pregnancy and birth like like you're studying for a test, because there's a lot out there, and it's not something that you're probably going to necessarily know going into the pregnancy, and you're not going to necessarily get it from your birth provider either, right? So you have to just kind of do your own, get your own information.
Absolutely. In today's day and age, especially, I remember, I envision a time when medicine was something came up that doesn't look right. You call the family doctor, they come over on the horse with a little black bag, and inside there, again, I imagine there were 3 things: a thermometer, some aspirin, and some alcohol. And the thermometer told you if you were going to live or die, and the aspirin and alcohol kept you comfortable until it happened. And right now, healthcare is a lot more complicated than that. They don't come to us for the most part. We go to them. And the degree of different types of testing that we can do, and the specializations, it's not one doctor anymore. It's a whole bunch of doctors. And even if you pick any field of orthopedics, it's not just the bone doctor. It's like, do I do upper body or lower body? Do I just do arms? Do I do hands? There's a thumb specialist here who only does thumbs.
Wow.
And it's the opposite. There's benefit to it, but it's the opposite of holistic healthcare. Holistic means you zoom out and look at the whole organism. The idea that when you step on a dog's tail, it barks. And if you want the dog to stop barking, you can always look at the source of barking and anesthetize the vocal cords. But if you want to figure out what's making the dog bark, you're going to have to zone out and look further. And, so the way medicine, since most childbirth is now considered medical and handled in medical facilities, the way medicine looks at it is a lot different than how we used to look at it. And it's more zoned in on what's happening here and what's happening here versus what's happening with the whole organism, the whole human being, or two human beings in this case. And so also, along with that, medical doctors, all providers, all of us, we're pulled in a lot of directions now. And it's not always like, what's the greatest thing I can do for my patient here? It's like, okay, there's a bunch of options. Which options are, would I choose if it was me, which may not be the same as if it was you? Which options am I comfortable offering? Because some of them have more or less risk, and there's different kinds of risk. There's risk to you as a patient, medical risk. There's risk to me as a provider, liability, and they're not always the same. So when my liability goes up, risk to me goes up. Doesn't mean necessarily that risk to you goes up, but am I really going to want to offer you both options? Am I going to want to stick my neck out and take risk for you if there's another option that's less risky for me?
CYA.
Yeah, exactly. Defensive medicine, CYA. So it's like also which one's insurance going to pay for, not pay for. And that sometimes limits your options too, because maybe you don't want to pay for the one that insurance isn't going to pay for, or maybe of the two that the insurance pays for, the provider will get paid a lot more for one versus the other, or the same, but one takes a lot more time and effort than the other, which essentially means they're getting paid a lot less. So, I mean, providers are human. We're all human. We have to make decisions, and some of the decisions we make are in the best interest of our patient, and some of them are motivated by other things, not because we're bad people. But if you want to be an active decision maker, if you want to be the advocate for making sure that everything's done the way you would want it done and that you have all the choices presented to you, you're going to have to know what those options are. And it's more important now than ever to, be on the ball when you're making healthcare choices of any kind, but especially before, during, and after birth.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the resources you recommend. I know one of them is Informed Pregnancy Plus. So I'd love for you to share what that is. And then if there's other resources out there as well, you have some documentaries.
Yeah, it all kind of started with me doing that research.
For your own children?
Partially for us, but more importantly for our patients. We're in Los Angeles. I'm from New York. And so now even in New York, it's different, but especially when I was living in Georgia and Nebraska, they didn't talk about things like doulas, for example. Like the first time somebody said doula to me, I was like, Gesundheit. And, they're like, oh no, it's a profession.
Right, it's a profession.
I'm like, oh, so everything here on the West Coast, at least in Los Angeles, there's a much more green-leaning clientele, and I was more of a medical-leaning person. So to get synced up, I was doing a lot of research on their behalf. People would come in all the time. Hey, do you know a doctor who supports VBAC? And I'm like, okay, let me go find out what VBAC is. At the very beginning of my foray into maternal health care. And when I figured it out, I was like, okay, well, why wouldn't a doctor support VBAC? Like when you look at the pros and cons, the risks that are inherent there are very much in line with other risks that we take in obstetrics all the time. So I would research deeper and try to figure out what are the motivating factors here. And, once you start to figure it out, it's like, okay, here's what you need to know. And I would be giving the same answer all the time. And so instead I decided to put them into blog form. We published a magazine for 7 years, the Informed Pregnancy Guide. And then after that, I started the podcast, our own Informed Pregnancy podcast, which is about 10 years in now. And, it's fascinating. Some of them are just episodes like this with someone who has expertise in the field, and you're trying to milk them for everything they've learned and learn from them. And some of them, the most powerful episodes that we do are before and after birth stories. I'll interview somebody while they're pregnant about what kind of birth they're hoping for. and then afterwards, how it actually went down. And essentially, we are learning with them at the same time what they learned from going through the experience that they somehow couldn't learn beforehand.
Right.
And trying to glean as much as we can from that, so the audience could take that and apply it to their own lives. And so the next step after that, we have a blog that also I'm just constantly taking information, trying to package it in a way that's easy to consume and make sense of and apply if wanted, as needed. And then I made these 2 documentaries. So the 2 passion points for me were vaginal birth after cesarean and vaginal breech delivery.
Right.
And just seeing,
which probably people have never even heard of anymore.
Right. I was
so
born in
rare.
1974. I came out breech, and I think they looked at me and they're like, okay, we're never doing this crap again. I don't know what happened. It just disappeared overnight.
You broke it.
I broke the mold. But I think I turned out pretty okay. So don't let that scare you off, ladies. The worst for me was seeing someone who had 2 healthy 7-pound vaginal deliveries with head down babies, and then had a 3rd baby that's in a frank breech position, butt down, legs up. And, nobody would entertain the idea of them giving birth vaginally. And then when you do the research, you realize the study that's all based on is not her case at all. And, the finding in that study was that there was a small but statistically significant better outcome for breech babies born by cesarean versus breech babies born vaginally. That is in people who never had a baby before. And so
first time.
Just that alone doesn't apply to this person at all. Meaning the conclusion on a group of people like her would almost definitely be there is a sizable benefit to giving birth to that breech baby vaginally versus by cesarean for both mother and baby. And then when you look deeper into that study, you realize there's a lot of flaws in the study that don't make it a study that you can apply across the board to other people. For example, in the study that was done, there's not some of the facilities where it was done have no ultrasound, have no NICU, have providers who have no experience with breech babies. You can't apply that to facilities that do have all of those things. And especially when you're talking about a small but statistically significant finding. So, the study came out in 2001. Pretty much overnight, the United States and Canada got rid of breech birth as an option. 2 years later, the same researchers from McGill University in Canada, Dr. Mary Hanna, they did a follow-up study on the 2-year-olds from the original study and found no long-term difference in health in those 2-year-olds, whether they were born by cesarean or vaginal birth. Already, that's interesting. And then, 2 years later, this researcher, Dr. Glazerman, came out with a kind of a critical review of the whole study and suggested that the conclusion be rescinded. And then 2 years after that, the United States changed their protocol. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists changed their protocol to say, maybe breech birth is a good option if you could still find a provider who's skilled and confident in doing it. And then by that point, we had at least 4 years of nobody doing breech birth. So all the doctors who had been trained during that time had zero experience, zero training, zero confidence, and the community norm was to not do it anymore. So going back to liability, if I'm going to give you a choice to do that, I'm going against the community norm. Even if it's a good option for you, it's a bad option for me as a provider. And even though there's a little bit more, perhaps since that change in ACOG guidelines came out, a little bit more breech birth happening, there's definitely not enough for people to train confidently and become competent at that type of delivery. And
it's a dying art. I only know of one doctor in New Jersey in my area that will do it. And, that's the thing too, like maybe not every single case is, like you said, like would qualify to attempt it, right? Like if it's a first time mom, I don't know, but if it's a larger baby, but I think the problem here is that it's a one size fits all, right? And you need to look at that individual case. You need to have a practitioner who is skilled and confident in breech delivery. And then they're going to be able to judge, right, the safety for that specific woman.
Exactly.
Like if you have one doctor in like this, out of like so many OBs in the area that will do it, like that's just very sad to me.
It's extremely sad. We have a handful here that do it. And, sometimes the cesarean's the better choice. All of the providers here, that midwives are no longer allowed to in the state of California. It's out of their scope now.
I'm not sure about New Jersey.
Even though they still have the skill, they're not allowed to. The doctors don't want to.
Right.
And so you're left with, the three basically people who never stopped doing it back from before 2001. They still have a lot of skill. They have the tools. They have the know-how. And they're very selective. They do it, in cases that they feel like are very safe. They'll offer the option.
Yeah.
And, some people don't even want the option for various reasons, mostly on hearsay. But whatever it is, if you don't want the option, great. We have cesarean birth. We have a safe alternative for getting the baby out in a way that you might prefer, and I support that 1,000%.
Yeah.
But it's when choices are taken away without a great reason, that's where I kind of get edgy. And it's true on the other side too. I have a patient who wanted to have a cesarean birth, even though she's young, strong, healthy, very fit. Baby was in a great position, but her mom suffered from trauma at birth, from a vaginal birth that she never fully recovered from, and that left a strong impact on her growing up and all the way up into adulthood. And she did not want to have a vaginal birth. She wanted everything to be very, medically controlled. And her doctor, I think and generally, I think they're acting, in good faith and good heart, wanting what's generally good for the patients. Same thing they would recommend to their own family. Was like, why don't you just have the vaginal birth? You're so young, strong, fit, healthy. Baby's in a perfect position. This should go great. And really was hesitant to offer an elective C-section. And that also, same thing, put me in a position where I got on the phone with her doctor. I was like, let's schmooze this out a little bit, Why does she want that cesarean birth so badly? And what if you push her into, take away that option, push her into having a vaginal birth and things don't go great? Like, who are we? We're educate, I understand, but take away choices, that seems like overreach. And in the end, she did educate. The patient chose to have a cesarean birth. She had a great cesarean birth experience, and she was grateful for that. So I sometimes come across as anti-cesarean, all the medical marvels of intervention that we have in childbirth, which I'm not at all. I'm very grateful for them. In fact, I think the only thing worse than forcing a C-section on somebody who doesn't need one or want one is not having access to a C-section for somebody who does need one or want one.
Right.
And the problem is the choices that are being limited are not cesarean birth, are not induction. They're just letting your body do its thing and, doing it on your own steam and not being told what you have to do and when you have to do it and how you have to do it. So those two passions of mine led me to make two different documentaries. One is about VBAC, and it's called Trial of Labor. It's 4 women sharing their experiences. They're all pregnant, and we have no idea what the outcomes are going to be. But
they've all had previous cesareans.
Previously, all had 1 or 2 cesareans, and they want to have a better birth experience this time. Mm-hmm. And we took out all the talking heads, all the doctors, all the midwives, everybody who is just an expert talking head source of information, and it's just told in the voices of the mothers themselves. And it just was so much more powerful that way. And, they share their personal story. It's called Trial of Labor, but the subtitle could be How to Have Your Second Birth the First Time Around. They want you to learn from their mistakes.
Oh, interesting. So I'm assuming, I haven't had the opportunity to watch it yet, it was potentially not necessary cesareans, because obviously sometimes cesareans are medically necessary. But these women's cases, it sounds like there was a medical interventions perhaps that kind of created that slippery slope.
Absolutely, in some cases. Some are more like questionable. Hard. Okay. It's not always cut and dry,
right?
Black and white. But whatever it was, they wanted to this time. They felt not in the driver's seat. I will say that for sure. And this time wanted to be in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm. Which is where empowerment comes from. Information. That's how you drive your birth.
Oh, 100%. And you should be in the driver's seat. One thing I noticed as, all these weird things happen, and eventually I became a doula. And I'm running out to birth all the time. My wife is also a doula.
You're the first male doula I've ever met.
I'm happy to be here for you. I
I love doulas, by the way.
I love doulas too. It's a weird pathway to get there because I'm a body worker, so I do a lot of body work during pregnancy. All of my chiropractic visits are 30 to 60 minutes long because it's that combination of massage and adjustment. And once someone's in labor, I know them now very well on a mind level, what makes them tick, where their confidence is, where their fears are. I know their bodies, where the weaknesses are, where the strengths are. And so being asked to come to a birth and do body work is how it all started. Especially the first couple were just babies that were stuck, not coming out, in a bad rotation with the skull against the spine and posterior position, things like that. And, it was like, hey, can you come? And then through the body work, I'm able to help them relax both in mind and body. And that can be a big game changer, settling in with confidence to the intensity that's coming versus, fighting it with fear. So that's kind of how then I was just at a few births and I was like, oh, this is like, she would say, hey, say something useful. And I'm like, I don't know, I just rub things and crack stuff. So I thought to be more helpful, I should do a doula training, and I did it together with my wife. And she is a psychologist, so she works with patients sometimes that have very intense anxiousness or fear or worry or OCD or other things like that, that a specialty doula, same thing, who understands them and what makes them tick and where their fears come from. So I'm probably, I guess for sure now, we're the only husband and wife doula you've ever met.
For sure. Do you both go to the same birth, or you're?
We've been invited to the same birth. However, when that happened, we had little kids.
Right.
And so
somebody's got to watch your own children.
Exactly. We can almost never go. I can remember 2 times historically that we were both called to different births at the same time overnight. And we had plans. We had plans for that to happen, and the plans executed very well. But those were definitely, my kids, when they sit around a table of adults now, my son in New Jersey, if he goes out for a meal for something, they'll be like, oh, tell me about your upbringing. And he's got all these interesting stories that most kids don't have. So about his weird parents. So our second documentary is all about breech, and it's called Heads Up, the Disappearing Art of Vaginal Breech Delivery. And it's deliberately short, 34 minutes. And it's really the story behind why breech birth has disappeared almost entirely, why there's push in trying to bring it back.
Good. I was curious about that.
Oh, Dr. Stuart Fishbein, who's in the film, just goes around the country in a Winnebago now teaching anybody who wants to hear, whether midwives, labor and delivery nurses, doctors, anybody, doulas, all about breech birth. He has a simulator. He's got so much experience delivering breech babies, and for at least the latter half of his practice, it was all at home. He stopped doing hospital birth. Wow. And I've been to births with him, home breech with him. I've been to hospital breech with some of the doctors here that do it. And, it's just very interesting to watch. In the film, there's a woman named Sarah who and Dr. Fishbein was her provider, who just first-time mom, having her baby and breech at home. And when you watch that birth, you're like, I want that birth.
Yeah.
Because she was so high on her own drugs and happy and euphoric really throughout the entire process, even when she's pushing this breech baby out. And when you see how the baby comes out butt first with the legs up, it's just a visual that I could describe it 1,000 times, but until you see it, it doesn't fully click. And you're like, oh, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
And at the premiere of the film, this was an interesting thing too. We rented a theater. It's Hollywood. So we rented a theater. We filled it up. People came out. And we had a kind of a panel, and we had providers who still do breech birth, and we had a bunch of women who've had vaginal breech delivery, and some of them also had head down vaginal birth. And there were questions from the audience, and one of the questions at the end was, how much more painful is delivering a breech baby vaginally than a head down baby? And all but one of the women said, no, it's the opposite. Delivering the breech baby was more comfortable because the entire time you're in labor, what's pushing down against your pelvis and your cervix is a softer, squishier object, the bum. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, there is a big pop. when it
Right.
comes out. But, for that, whatever it is, 8 hours, 14 hours, 24 hours, you're feeling a softer, more gentle pressure until the very last second. And so
Fascinating.
I ran up to the podium like, okay, well, if anybody here has a head down baby and you want me to try to help get it into a breech position,
Stop it.
call my office. Here's my card. But after I made these 2 films, it was like striking a match. There was this big flare of activity and impact, which is why I made them. I'm not a filmmaker. I don't know that much about making film. I spent an inordinate amount of time and money putting these things together. And Trial of Labor just visually came out beautiful. And it's a great film. And Heads Up is not the most visually, it's like I'm in, I don't know, just starting out, trying to figure it out. On a shoestring budget and a short amount of time. And visually, it's actually what makes that movie so beautiful, aside from the stories, which is what drives the whole thing, is the music. Once we put music into it, I started crying when I would watch it. And I still do sometimes, especially if I'm watching with a full room, an audience. So it is a beautiful film. It's just not like a filmmaker's delight. And
but it's really about like, this is not just for like entertainment. This is there's lessons to be learned here. This is powerful information that you don't really get in a lot of places, right? Like that's why you made it. This is not stuff that's really easily accessible to learn about.
Completely. But once those premieres and screenings and online, activities sort of started to die down a little bit.
When was this, by the way?
This is about 5-6 years ago. The movies just started to dangle in the sphere of the deep, dark sphere of the interworld and interweb. And they, what I started to happen to me that was heartbreaking was I would get messages periodically saying, wow, I just saw Trial of Labor. I wish I had seen it before I had my baby.
Oh.
And I was like, wait a second, I made it so you could see it before you had
Right.
And, the stories of people who fell down the same kind of path as the women in the film, I was just like, how do I get this out there? I realized the only thing I know less than how to make a film is what to do with it once you have a great film. So I started to reach out to some of the icons like Ricky Lake, who has The Business of Being Born, and Deborah Peskel, who has Orgasmic Birth, and some of the other major filmmakers. And like, yeah, it's sort of similar. Like it's, it doesn't have a great place where people can easily come find it and consume it. And that kind of put me on a path where I said, I want these films to have the impact that they could have. And I want the people who need them to have access to them when they need them, not after the fact. And so that's where Informed Pregnancy Plus came from. I put together a streaming service where we can gather these films, make new content, and some of it is documentaries like these. We do have The Business of Being Born, Orgasmic Birth, and Mama Sherpas, my films, Trial of Labor, Heads Up. We also have important films that are not directly related to that, like Sick, The Battle Against Hyperemesis Gravidarum is a very powerful film for an under-talked about topic about HG and how it works and what we're learning about it and how it's completely different than regular nausea and vomiting of pregnancy. We have a series on miscarriage called You Are Not Alone. We have a movie about stillbirth called Still Loved that's coming out. That's going to be up on the site ASAP. And then we have a series called The Real Midwives of Los Angeles, just because I do stand-up comedy at nighttime.
That is hilarious.
Thank you very much. And another web series, My Birth, where it's more of a video version of a woman sharing her birth and, courageously sharing pictures and video clips from the birth that take you even deeper into the story, and seeing what different births could be like and what they are like. And Empowered Mama is a new series we're doing that is sort of like talk show style interviews with people about specific. We just for VBAC, for Cesarean Awareness Month, we're doing a whole series on cesarean birth stories. And mind and body stuff, a whole series of meditations for different stages of pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, yoga, workouts, exercise and fitness for before and after. And it's all streaming in areas where it's easy to consume digital content, video content. It's on Apple, it's on Android, it's on Roku, it's on the internet at informedpregnancy.tv. You can sign up from anywhere, and just like other streaming services like Netflix or Hulu, you just watch it wherever you are on the go.
Wow.
And it's
how cool. Are you techie? Like you had to hire someone to kind of like create that, or did you do that yourself?
I'm not super techie. I'm not, I'm not my parents, but
right.
I could set the clock on the VCR. But I'm not like coding techie, and I'm not always up to date on like what the latest apps and tools are for building these things. So it did take a lot of time and effort to research options, and even then, once you have the platform built, it's to kind of find out who owns the rights to some of this content, and then contacting them, and then going back and forth about could we license it, could we get it in front of people who need it, figuring out licensing, and then there's all these expenses involved with legal, and just content's not free, you got to buy it. So
it's a big undertaking.
It's huge. It's as if like a year ago I said, wait a second, I have way too much free time and all this extra money. What do I do with it? Oh, I'll make informed pregnancy plays.
The black hole sucked it all up.
Sucking. So, but it's so fulfilling because people go on there and anybody can do a free trial and check out all the content with the free trial. And then it's like $6 or $7 a month instead of paying $6 for one film.
Right.
For 2 days.
Right.
You have everything that's on there available to you, and there's not a time limit. You have it until you stop subscribing. So, it's very fulfilling. People get on there and find all this information. Look, I'm in Los Angeles. You're in New Jersey on the border of New York City.
Right.
There's resources for our patients in our practices.
We're not like in the Midwest.
Yeah, but there's people who have no, like if you walk out my door, you can find yoga studios on every block. Mm-hmm. When I was in Nebraska, there was no prenatal yoga. There was no midwifery center. There was not like all these things didn't exist. Childbirth education, there was like one choice.
Right.
So to be able to kind of support women and partners in this time with resources that they can have access to, and that its affordability is within reach to pretty much everybody.
Yes,
that's very fulfilling. I've taken my passion and moved it out of my Los Angeles office out into the world, and even internationally. We're getting good. I was
going to say it's probably not just for American women. This would apply for women, anybody speaking English, living anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and they can subtitle anything. We have a film from Japan. A lot of our films I'm bringing in from international filmmakers too,
there's like subtitles.
Only one of our films currently is in a foreign language that has subtitles, but there's foreign countries that are English speaking. Like we have stuff from Australia, New Zealand, the UK. The Sick, the Bad Olgans, Typeremesis is a British film, almost more powerful with the accent. I always put the accent on like Waze because I trust her more. I don't know why, but that British accent is believable.
Trustworthy. That's hilarious.
Yes. It's always a woman. I don't trust guys with directions.
Right.
And it's a British woman. So we have one film from Japan that is called Prenatal Memory. And it's this Japanese doctor who's been studying for 3 or 4 decades now. What do babies remember from before they're born? From their time in the womb, or a little woo, but even before their time in the womb.
Yes.
And he has these interviews with kids, and they do experiments. Like they'll play a song during pregnancy once a week that mama likes, and then they won't play it for a year, and then they'll start playing it again at the first birthday, and the baby has this big reaction to it, and they have no idea why. And it's sort of like, wait a second, if our baby was born, we would never ignore them for 9 months. Of course, they'd be taken care of in terms of food and things like that, but we would never just ignore them for 9 months. But at some point in the womb, it's very clear that babies are very much aware, whether it's a conscious level, subconscious level, they're aware of the things that you're saying, of the things that you're experiencing. And it's just opened my mind in a whole new way to kind of like, how do you want to interact with your baby at that time and connect and bond with your baby at that time? So these international films coming in, I think, are filling in gaps for areas where we don't have film, and our films are being consumed around the world also, and making the global childbirth community a little bit more connected.
That's very cool. I want to share that I created a documentary of my pregnancy and birth experience. And I would love to talk more to you about that, about maybe how I can get it out there and share it more.
100%. I'm first of all, one only needs to listen to one podcast of yours to feel your passion, your energy. And also one only needs to visit your website for 2 seconds to see all the incredible things that you're doing around this world, just like running as fast as you can on the treadmill to compile and deliver, and also to make childbirth more empowered. So I would partner with you in any way that I could in our messages and just reach a wider audience.
Yeah, I love that, because it was a labor of love to make, no pun intended, to make that documentary. Like you mentioned, it's just, it was just something like I was like sharing all this information with the women in my practice, and then I'm practicing it during my own pregnancy. And it's like an opportunity to see a positive birth story, right? And I feel like there's just not a lot of those examples out there. And that's what I want women to know, that if you get the information and you really have that mind-body connection, and you do your preparation, right, then you can really have this most amazing, mind-blowing birth experience. And it really shifts the way you mother. It shifts your whole world will shift, and the world consciousness will shift as women are essentially evolving and growing during pregnancy and birth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing is, birth's sort of unpredictable. People say, I don't want to make a plan because I don't, what if it doesn't work out that way? And I'm like, okay, there's a lot of option. If I'm driving from Los Angeles to San Francisco or from Los Angeles to Hoboken, there's going to be a million different routes I can take. If I don't even look at the map, I don't have the idea that there's the more scenic route or there's the fastest route. And I can't make any choices. Now, of course, if I make choices, if I have the choice, I would rather go with route A. Then I can set out to go on route A. And if 2/3 of the way through route A, there's a detour, then I'll take route B. But at least I gave route A shot.
Right.
And I'm still going to get to the same destination.
Right.
But I'm also in the driver's seat. I'm not just like, driver, take me to Hoboken.
Right. That's right.
And it's a different experience making choices versus having choices made for you. And some people, I will say, I definitely encountered the person who likes to have choices made for them. And there are many practitioners who will be happy to do that for you, a more paternalistic style of care where, for whatever reason, you don't want to be involved in decision-making. You don't want maybe the responsibility of having to make those choices. It's too worrisome. They're the professional. They've been training for all this time, and you're not. So there's that model too. That's great also. But even then, that's a choice. That's saying, I want to be with a provider who's going to make all these choices for me.
It is okay. I mean, it's important that people have choices, but there's still, to me, something like deeper there that could be explored by that woman that could be very powerful, like working with a psychologist, a therapist, a hypnotherapist. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally if there's a mindset where where you're numbing yourself to the experience.
Yes.
In one of many different ways. That could be one of them, where I don't want to know choices. I don't want to make choices. There's something driving that. And,
yes.
I think if you don't know what it is, it's worth exploring. Or
even if you do know what it is, it's worth exploring.
Well, for sure, if you know what it is. But if you don't know what it is, maybe there's something there that you should be aware of. And maybe there isn't, but or maybe you won't find out what it is. But it's always, look, I just had a patient right now who's pregnant with twins. She's young. It's surprise twins. And, she's very disconnected from the pregnancy, partially because they keep telling her that, they're sharing a placenta. It's a little more risky. And they keep telling her, this could happen or that could happen or whatever can happen. And she will not allow herself to bond with them. She's trying to dissociate as much as possible from them so that if something does happen, she won't be as devastated. And it's a defensive mechanism to be aware of. But then I'm like, but on the same token, are you missing out? And she's like, I'm never doing this again. These are my only kids I'm ever going to have. Like, are you missing out on, the possibility of bonding with them now, of, doing things in your pregnancy that helps you connect with them? And you could tell by a lot of different things that she said that she was actively removing herself from the pregnancy. And she didn't realize she was doing that until I pointed out. And then once we started talking about it, she realized, I think it's because they keep telling me, these terrible things. Or she's also a model having twins, which is like, on top of everything else, her body's changing in a way that is scary to her. But maybe also would be beautiful to her if she was at all connected to the pregnancy. And even after that first visit, when we had that chat, she left with a totally different mind frame. Like, she told me, she's like, I really appreciate the conversation on top of the body work. And sure, that's always something I think worth exploring. When you're going to have a new chapter in life, if you want to be able to write that chapter, to be actively writing that chapter and the things that happen in that story, then it's a great time to reflect and see, where am I and how did I get here and where do I want to go and how do I get there?
So a patient like that, you would refer to your wife as well?
I talked to her about doing either counseling and or hypnotherapy.
Does your wife do both?
She doesn't. She does counseling. She does... she has a lot of tools in her counseling tool belt, and she does things like EMDR and somatic experiencing that help unlock. But hypnosis comes from a different angle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing that I refer women to a lot who maybe sadly had a traumatic birth experience and now they're pregnant with baby 2. And there's a lot of fear, in their subconscious mind about what could potentially happen with this upcoming birth. And that is very powerful to address, ideally before the birth happens, right? And I find hypnotherapy can be a great way to kind of get in there and literally reframe that trauma and almost neutralize it. You're not forgetting it. You're not suppressing it. You're not ignoring it, but you can neutralize it. And then you can change the upcoming birth story to be positive.
Sure. I think hypnotherapy is very powerful for that. And my wife does a lot of birth trauma. She does a lot of short-term therapy around transition, like having a baby. And when it's a second baby, there's sometimes birth trauma from previous birth. And both of the two modalities that I was talking about, EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, kind of use the eye movements just like when you're in that state of sleep where all of a sudden fantastical things can happen. You're flying, or people who would never be in the same room together are having a conversation in the room with you. Those guardrails on reality kind of go down in your mind and things become more fluid. And you can use those movements, those eye movements, to put those guardrails down, go into a trauma that happened and sort of reprocess this or desensitize yourself to what happened there so it doesn't handcuff you moving forward. And somatic experiencing is a little different. It's the idea that mind and body are one. You can't separate them. You don't store emotions, thoughts, memories, experiences only in your brain. You store them in your mind, which is literally your whole body. Any human tissue can store them. And sometimes you're holding these tough memories in tissue that affects function. You're holding them in an organ, you're holding them in muscles, and they cause dysfunction. And if you can release where you're holding on to them, it doesn't mean it didn't happen to you, but you can get rid of the dysfunction that's caused by holding them on. Sometimes that's a powerful tool in fertility, overcoming fertility. That's handcuffing your reproductive organs, or birth. That's also kind of holding things in when you want to open up and let the baby out. So they're very powerful tools, and teamwork. We're all puzzles, and we're all pieces in the same puzzle.
Yes, the birth team, there's all these different types of support people that are available during pregnancy and birth, and then after giving birth as well. Do you and your wife do any postpartum doula work, or you're strictly birth doula?
So I do a lot of postpartum care, like I'm sure you do too, in the office.
In the office, yes.
In the office, I do a very long restorative bodywork session after birth. And then we continue postpartum care because of, it's not like you have the baby and it's like, what are you going to do now? Go to Disneyland. It's all of a sudden you got to feed the kid. Everything that was on autopilot you're doing now, and all the bending, lifting, holding, feeding, changing. The symptoms tend to move from lower body to upper body, mommy neck and mommy back. So I have a long relationship with my patients. I'll sometimes have patients that think I only do pre and postpartum care, which we also do some general care. And there's one person who used to call and say, hey, I want to make a postnatal appointment with Dr. Berlin. And they'll be like, how old is your baby? And she'll be like 12 years old. And I'm like, okay.
That's hilarious.
You don't have to call it postpartum anymore, but you are.
Technically you are postpartum.
Always. Once you've done it, you're always postpartum. And my wife does a lot of postnatal care. She also has a workshop that is called the Afterbirth Plan. I think a lot of people spend time preparing for what happens during birth, like 9 months preparing for that 24-hour or so birth period, and almost zero time preparing for what happens over the next 24 years or so. And so the Afterbirth Plan is how to prepare, more than anything, your relationship for having a baby-proofing the relationship.
Your intimate relationship.
Yeah, your relationship with the baby.
That's a big one. Bringing baby home.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar. Oh, my God, that content. I read that book when I was pregnant, and I was like, oh, my God, this is amazing.
So Alyssa's got a little bit of a more modern take on it, and a more, less didactic take on it that is easier for couples. So it's broken down into modules, and it's all on Informed Pregnancy Plus as well.
So it's virtual, so you can live anywhere, and you're digesting this information ideally while you're pregnant, not after.
Very ideally while you're pregnant. After,
yes.
And it's hard to talk about postpartum while you're pregnant because sometimes the pregnancy is so blissful and wonderful and great, hopefully more often than not, that it's hard to start dealing with a problem you don't have and can't really envision. But then postpartum is a bumpy, by all accounts, a pretty bumpy terrain. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a rocky, bumpy terrain with a lot of things happening at the same time, mind, body, spirit, relationship. And, if you go off-roading in the proper vehicle, you could have a great time. But if you're still driving that little family sedan, it's going to be a rough ride. And so to prepare for that bumpy terrain and understand the topography, where the pitfalls are, and to not fall into them, to navigate around them, is very, very powerful. But it's hard to allocate time and resources to it while you're pregnant. And it's much harder to do it once you have the baby.
Oh, yeah. It's just like there's just that Groundhog Day, that fourth trimester. It's just like every day is a blur. Yeah. And it goes really fast, but it also goes really slow.
Yes. The days go very slowly and the months and years go quickly.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really amazing, fascinating conversation. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with the audience?
It's your journey. Take the wheel and have what you want. Make the experience what you want it to be. Surround yourself with information so you can be a decision maker. You can be an active part of the decision making. Surround yourself with providers who you're on the same page with. A lot of different kinds of providers. Most of them are great. They might not be a great fit for you, though. So it's a little bit of a dating process. And you won't even know at the beginning what to ask unless you have more information to see if this is going to be a great provider for your pregnancy, for your birth, for your postpartum. And you don't get to do it too often. So if you can have information, do it the way you want from the beginning. I think it's a very powerful opportunity. And there's a lot of strength that comes with, self-strength. They say when you give birth the first time, it's a double birth. It's the birth of a child and the birth of a mom. And that's a very powerful moment in time for you as an individual, obviously for your baby, for the universe as a whole. And through that power, you can make changes in your life that you may not have been able to make before. And the more, tapped into it you are, the more you can take advantage of that.
Wow. Well said. Thank you so much, Dr. Berlin.
My pleasure. Thank you again for having me and for all the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you. What a pleasure I had today to speak to Dr. Berlin. And we really share the same passion for empowering women during the perinatal phase of their life. And really, that comes from information, education, awareness, and intuition. And so I feel like him and I both share the joy of not only seeing women in person in our practices on both ends of the both coasts, the East and West Coast, but then also providing online content as well. He has an amazing program. If you go to informedpregnancy.com, you can get all the information about his documentaries and online workshops and all the types of tools and resources that are available for women so that you can feel really clarity about what your best path is regarding your pregnancy, your birth, and your motherhood. And I'm just so grateful for him to come on and share his wisdom and humor.